More and more, our planet's lingua franca is globish, that no-frills version of English that's so handy in the airport, the boardroom, or science lab. Here in this country, there are those who feel the French are being, well, left out of the conversation. That's the front page of today's Libération. A bill to be introduced Wednesday by the ruling socialists would further loosen a 1994 ban on teaching some university classes in French. Now, that sparked huge outcry and deep divisions on both sides of the political aisle, among those who see the move as a capitulation of the French language to Anglo-Saxon cultural hegemony. It mirrors a split among academics over whether scientists, for instance, can afford not to speak English, over what's the best way to attract foreign students. The irony, in a nation with a two-speed system, is that while current rules apply to public universities, the highly selective grandes écoles that mold tomorrow's leaders do not play by these rules. They already teach many courses in English. Today in the France 24 debate, more English, non merci, with Fabrice Rousseau, the managing editor for French newspaper Libération, who penned an editorial in today's paper. We'll talk about it more in a moment. Also with us is Raquel Garrido of the Parti de Gauche, the party of the left. Thanks for being with us again. And joining us as well, Yves Montanet, author of The French Language Confronted by Globalization.
Exactly.
With us as well, Henri Isaac, who teaches business at the University of Paris Dauphine. Thank you for being with us. The France 24 debate, where many of you have already started joining the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. Now, there's 60 articles in that university reform bill that's to be put before Parliament this Wednesday. The focus, well, it's squarely on one of them, Article 2, which calls for more English in university classrooms.
Good afternoon, everybody.
These students are French, their teacher is a Dutch native. But at this business school where they're studying, lessons are taught in English, even when the teacher is French.
Which you will work on, and of course, that
there's a specific business vocabulary to learn that you don't use in everyday life. So we are being trained to be as comfortable as possible when speaking English.
you want a business career, and then you have to talk the business language, and the business language is English and not Dutch or German or Spanish. It's English. And be positive.
And other French universities are following suit, like at this prestigious business school in Toulouse, where delivering lessons in English is high on the agenda. Here they want to attract the best teachers, even if it means turning their back on the French language.
At my university, at least 10% of our core staff are from abroad, and they don't speak French well enough to be able to teach in French. So for these people, I have to let them teach in English or their mother tongue. If they stop me from doing this, these people will no longer come to France, and that would be a real loss for our research teams.
Different things that comes from
France's Minister for Higher Education wants a law passed which would see lessons taught in English a common practice across French universities.
Mr. Prime Minister, I wish to ask you a question.
It's a prospect which has opened a lengthy debate in Parliament, with some arguing the benefits for France would be huge.
We want to welcome students from emerging countries like Korea, India and Brazil to study science, economics and technology. These days they're not coming to France because of the language barrier.
Away from Parliament, the philosopher Michel Serres fears that casting French aside at universities in favour of other languages could have grave consequences.
If a language can no longer express everything it needs to, it means that it's virtually dead. A language is only really alive when it can say everything. Teaching specialized terms, science and techniques in a different language threatens its very existence, so it becomes virtually dead.
Despite the controversy surrounding the proposed law, even if it is eventually passed, universities will be expected to keep the number of lessons taught in English to a set quota.
Fabrice Rousseau, we heard philosopher Michel Serres there. Point taken. You need to be able to express yourself in a language, or else it starts to die.
I agree with that, but I think we do. I think one of the problem here is what do you think what you consider the defense of the French language. To me, I mean, and that's why we decided to do this in Libération today, is I think the French language couldn't be exported. I think it's good to have French students abroad to speak in French and have debates in French. I think foreign students coming to France can bring some of the French language with them, back to their country. You have beautiful, meetings and discussions in America or in England about Proust, about other French authors. And why should we, basically decide to stay in our borders to have the French language, perpetuated in some ways? I mean, I think, as I said earlier, French language is dead when it stays in its border. And the exchange, to me, the reality of the world today, like the students we saw on your documentary, and were basically saying, we in business we have to speak in English or we don't exist.
That's Raquel Garrido. Foreign students coming to France, very important, because afterwards they sort of become apostles, shall we say, for France. They become ambassadors for our country when they return to their native country.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have many of the elite worldwide attending high schools, French-speaking high schools, in the idea that eventually they will come to France, to the French universities, and they select important professors in France. And that's an effort that you will find in Brazil, in Turkey, in many countries where families actually think ahead and send their kids to the French high schools so that they can come to France. And those kids and those families make a choice. When they decide if they're going to send their high school to the American school or to the French school, that's an important decision in a family. They put the money where they want it, and they put their ideas and their philosophy also in that choice. And so what are we proposing today? The discussion is that it's actually ridiculous. What we're saying, what we're telling them is that when they come here, we're going to teach them in English. It's really stupid, actually. The important thing to underline is that the discussion is absolutely not about the French learning languages, which would be a very important issue, because indeed the French, and I think people that watch France 24 and see all the debates that you have every day, hear that the French don't speak very good English. Okay, and they're not generally not very good in languages, and it is an issue, and it is a problem, and I think that needs to be dealt with in primary school, in high school. You need maybe different ways of teaching it, putting money where it isn't, and maybe sending our kids abroad more. But this discussion with the Loi Furazo is not about that. It's about having Anglo-Saxon ideas taught in the Anglo-Saxon language, which is English, to whom? To anyone who is already bilingual. It's a mundillo. It's a small world of people that are destined to master and to lead the world within a set of ideas. And you will have you find it in business, you find it in technology. And why should we, the French language, surrender those domains? Why should we surrender the fact?
So it's a political problem, what you're saying. Basically,
it is. It is a very political problem.
It's not the language you're talking about, but the issues and the ideas behind the...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yves Montanet.
Yes, I must add that I'm not only a former businessman, but I did also manage a business school in France, and I always teach at the ESCP that you saw here. So, first, in Centrale, École Centrale de Paris, I'm a former student. I'm the, how to say it in English, the tutoree of all the Chinese students. The Chinese students choose to learn French because Centrale is a well-known school. And I'm sure that the Chinese government is aware to have...
So you don't need more English language classes at this point?
We have English classes in Centrale, but every student speaks a good English in Centrale. It's a prerequisite to come into school. So there are some courses in English, but the Chinese coming in Centrale speaks a good French. It's also a prerequisite.
Henri Isaac, what do you think of the current law, and do you need a reform?
Well, I think that there's some hypocrisy behind all of this, because I'm very surprised that we have that debate today, because many French universities do offer courses in English, and for many years I've been teaching in English for almost 10 years now. And it opens opportunity for our students to go abroad because the exchange systems requires from us to have courses in English, to have foreign students come to France, and then having opportunity for our students to go abroad. Without that offer in English, French students won't be able to go abroad and have the opportunity to have exchange places. And first, the second point is that if you are doing research at the master or at the doctoral level, 95% of the research is done in English, and the English is the international language of research. So when you work on the research side, well, every faculty is reading English, using English for the research. And when you're teaching business or information system like I do, the international language is English.
Henri Sec, let me read to you what the longtime host of several French literary shows, Bernard Pivot, he moderates a national spelling bee here in France. He said, if we let English into our universities, if we leave it as the sole language to express science and the modern world, then French will mutilate and impoverish itself. It will become a mundane language, worse, a dead language.
Well, let me give you just an example. I'm teaching information system, and I got a post-structuralism approach of that, and lecturing students with Deleuze and Foucault, which are typical French philosophers that I use to explain the information systems that we face in today's world. And I'm not sure that if those foreign students go to United States and in a typical classical American university, they will be exposed to that French ideas that I'm able to teach them in English. So I think that we can still have our thinking being done in French, but then we are speaking about transmitting ideas, and we can do that in English.
But don't you think for those students it would be more interesting that you, as a Frenchman, as a French teacher, teach Deleuze in French? I mean, isn't that the point of university, to go to the core of what those authors are meaning?
Well, I think that Deleuze is more read in the United States and than in France, and that we are not so many in the business schools having such an approach.
I understand that, but don't you think that it would be more interesting for the students to read Deleuze in French?
Well, we must offer both and have English and French courses, but if we don't offer English courses, you have to understand that our French students won't be able to go abroad and have exchange.
The thing is, one language. I mean, I agree. I respect Mr. Pivot and Mr. Serran, but the problem is, I mean, in what you said is, you said, if it's becoming the sole language, why should English become the sole? That's not the point here. This is about exchanging languages and everything else. Okay, we can take your political point, saying, okay, maybe we're afraid of going to liberalism and everything else, and the Anglo-Saxon hegemony, which has been it's a thing that's been going on in France for what 6th century. It's been always there, but. Is that the issue right here, right now? I don't think so. I don't think it's about suddenly the English language becoming the sole language in France. That's not the issue. The issue is the reality. What's the reality of today? Today, I think if you want to promote the French language, one way to do it is to have, again, exchanges and people exchanging in those languages. And having, again, I've been to Duke University not so long ago, where there was a huge debate about France and French, and it's great. And and people were talking in French, talking in English, and I think it's part of what we should promote today, and that's a reality of the world today.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Libération, for reminding everyone that knowing two languages is better than knowing one language. But thank you. But
there's
that's
no need
not
to
the
caricature
point.
because that's what you're doing since the beginning.
Because what I mean,
and no need to put aggressive language either.
The standpoint you took in Libération today to write in English, saying, okay, we're so cool at Libération because we speak English. We're almost friends with Philip Roth because we're really cool, and then the other people that don't speak English, they're mediocre. That's almost the standpoint you had in Libération today.
The standpoint we said is actually the good point about that reform would be to have more people accessing English and being able to speak English, which is one of the problems today.
And that Lac does not do one single thing for one single student in France so that he can learn English. Not one single thing. The only thing it does is permit already English-speaking people, whether they be from the elite because they're economically in their families, they're sent abroad when they're young. They're selected in schools like Centrale,
This
where,
is
as you
caricature.
said,
What you're doing is
they already
a
know
nice
English.
caricature of,
I know. I live it. I know exactly what it is. I'm fluent in English, as you can hear. So I've been to places where we all speak English, obviously. But no one there can. If you don't speak English in the first place, you don't get into that world.
Just say you're scared. That's fine. You can be scared. That's fine.
Of what?
Just one point.
This Anglo-Saxon hegemony, which is such a big, it's such a threat that basically it threatens the French language. I think that's the other way around. Just listen to people around you. Just try to, have people more exchanges, and I think it's a way of communicating.
It's not about romanticism and love stories. It's about effectively the France.
More romanticism would be nice. And love stories as well.
You mentioned one point about...
I come from a mixed marriage, and my kids are fluent in many languages. So I'm not trying to close into borders or anything, or nothing of the sort. It's not the point. I think it's part of the point. The Loi Fioraso does nothing to open borders for the French students, and does nothing to invite people to France.
Only people who are able to attend Grand École system will be able to speak English and to be taught in English, and French students attending the university will be excluded from that globalization. Yeah. So we have to open that and consider the fact that not only the LI that go to the Grand École system must have access to the English, we must open that into the French university.
The Grandes Écoles in France effectively are closed to most of the French students. That is a problem. Maybe Libération should worry about that. And then when those kids go to those high elite schools, when they go to those schools, they already know how to speak English, and then they're taught in English, and what I believe being brainwashing classes. You're being brainwashed. Those kids that were in those business classes, learning all the blah blah, the business blah blah.
We're going
it's
from
Anglo-Saxon then you go to the European Commission, and then
it's not caricature. It's not cliche. You went from Anglo-Saxon hegemony to brainwashing now.
Yes, I think it is brainwashing.
What's the next step?
This is ridiculous. The next step is the policies we have. We have a small group of people
let me put the question. Hold on.
running the world as it is.
Please, let me put the question to Yves Montenay. You attended one of those Grandes Écoles, Sciences Po, those elite schools. There, they do have courses in English. Is that a bad thing?
But I think...
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
There are two different questions. First, it's good for everybody to learn and practice English, and most of what you said is it's useful to learn English. Everybody agrees.
But should Sciences Po stop learning?
Another thing is that the first aim of the French university is to give professional skills to the students. The students come from, right or wrong, they don't speak English. So it's a pity to have English courses in the first years of university. We are speaking about masters. Okay, I agree. Masters, you have specific questions, specific people, specific things to teach. Okay, but the university is not only the masters.
There's also the undergraduate. We're going to come back and pick up on these points. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate.